So Ergo has a mixer on the base layer. How, in the light of the tornado crashes issue, could Ergo be affected if it draws attention? So basically, the Ergo mixer, if we get more exposure, if we get more traffic, how does the tornado cache affect Ergo mixer? Is there any kind of, risk there? What do you think, Joe?
I think that it's reactionary. It doesn't take into account that zero knowledge proofs and privacy rollups are becoming more popular, more adopted, and plugged into more ecosystems, right? And the reality is most ecosystems that have functionality are actually developing privacy-based tools. Okay, so once that technology is in the wild, that is extremely hard to stop, especially in an open system. Now, I would draw a parallel to OFAC said, this is bad for, X reason, something to do with North Korea, yada, yada, yada. You could ask the same question: is any type of token that could be listed or deemed as a security a liability? Because that's certainly been a fear out there that has created the same type of hysteria. And I guess potentially privacy could be an issue. Potentially, securities, some classification could be an issue in certain jurisdictions. But the reality is, I got a message after this saying, you guys need to take the Ergo mixer offline. And I was like, well, number one, I can't. And that's the beauty of like the decentralized system, is I literally can't. It's an anonymous dev. I don't know who built it, right? It's open source code. So even if the GitHub is removed, you have a ton of people globally that are running it locally and could use file sharing, P2P methods, any other type of hosting service to share it around. So it kind of becomes one of those things that it's like a weed that you can, remove. Bay has a website and go through an 18-month investigation and finally shut down that one server, and then suddenly there's 17 mirrors. Good luck. I can't stop it. I have no desire to. I think that privacy has its place. It has a purpose, and even is quite useful beyond simply like the negative connotations that come with hiding something, right? It's good to have financial privacy sometimes when you're interacting with applications, sometimes when you're bidding on something, sometimes when you're sending somebody funds. You don't want them to know what you have, right? That's really common sense. So I think that there's a lot of hoopla, hype, and fear around that. And, to be honest, it was quite serious. They arrested a developer. They, pulled things from GitHub. But ultimately, I hope that it sparks a fire in our industry that we say, okay, well, how do we create a dApp that's front end and back end are hosted in ways that cannot be, stifled? And ultimately, it makes our industry harder, better. And, we stop seeing everything hosted on like Amazon Web Services and start actually trying to engineer systems from the bottom up that you just can't remove, Be cool.
Yeah, and also just to add to what you were saying with, I guess there are like, panic trends, especially with new technology, especially with privacy tooling that come around. It's like, oh, privacy coins. We're not going to touch the JFSA. And I still actually think they might still be, OCD about not touching privacy coins. Oh, it's a privacy coin. Oh no, that's just too risky. Well, first of all, it shows you, okay, so exactly why do you want to deny that level of privacy? Because the government is not really going to tell you usually why they're, what is the reason for their action? Why is it not okay? They'll throw stuff at you. Oh, North Korea. Oh, terrorists. Like, okay, yeah, but you can't outlaw everything in the world that can be used by North Korea or terrorists. That's a bullshit reason. I'm sorry. You have to be more specific specific. Has North Korea tried using this? Have they used it successfully? It has to be more like that for the intelligent person, or at least somebody with my level of intelligence, which is, average, to accept it. And what you also have to remember is, there could be bad actors. There have been bad actors with privacy, that they use privacy tooling for bad stuff. But it's kind of like, I got to think about it this way, right? A lot more privacy tooling has been used for not bad stuff than bad stuff. So proportionately, the bulk amount of privacy tooling out there has not been used for nefarious activities. And you just really have to think about it that way. And you really have to weigh these things out, and really hope governments out there will start. I'm not going to hold my breath, but will start come to their senses and understand it's like, okay, you can't play mommy forever, because it's not sustainable, because you can't police the internet. You definitely can't police a decentralized ecosystem, because as Joe just said, it's like a weed. You're not going to win. You'll lose. If they want you to lose, you will lose. You can't control it. And it also reminds me of something that was said in a Twitter space that I was in yesterday. It had to do more about NFTs and intellectual property rights, and more about working in Hollywood and utilizing intellectual property in Hollywood and so on and so forth, or in show business in general. And so one of the people actually said that, a lot of artists, a lot of starting independent artists are afraid to expose their art to the world because they're afraid they're going to get ripped off. And you can throw out arguments that, you can't really copy art. You can only try to imitate it. If it's really art, it's unique. So if somebody knows that you made it, even if somebody else makes something close, they'll still know that you made the original. It's still not going to be the same thing. And okay, yes, maybe scripts, things like that have gotten stolen. Might have been, and there have been actually stories about, scripts getting stolen, if rewritten by larger studios and whatever. But look, bottom line here is that for the most part, most scripts and most art does not get stolen. It just does not. Most of it, people avoid plagiarism. People avoid nefarious activities. They use the system, the space for good. Same thing with privacy tooling. Privacy tooling is not made to carry out terrorist activities. It's not made to carry out criminal activities. It's made to give the individual their basic rights, right to privacy. That is one of the basic rights of living in a pre-democratic society.
There's also something about, let's say the historical trend of, I hate to say it, but criminal enterprises tend to be the first to pick up innovation because it benefits them. Who were the first people to, afford V8 cars? People in Prohibition that wanted to outrun the cops. Who were the people that, started to adopt cell phones? It was, international cartels and that type of organization, especially when it was quite expensive. Who was the first people to pick up the internet and start, building, that global communication systems, and markets generally. There is a kind of a historical precedent of using the cutting edge to some advantage in that side of the space. So, I think there's always going to be that trend if it is a useful technology that applies benefits to some degree. That can be like a leading indicator of its use. Hate to say it, but it's just true.
Yeah. Of course, you can look at it that way as well, and that's a valid point. Just generally speaking, as I said before, I just think that it's an overreaction, as you said as well. It's an overreaction. you can't look. It's just like with the internet when it just came around, right? I mean, everybody thought that. Oh, I remember there was a show about like UFOs and stuff. I forgot what it was called back in the 90s. And they would show these, it was about, UFOs and unexplained phenomenon and just like weird shit. And so one episode was about a guy who believes that the apocalypse was coming and the machines were going to take over. And he actually had some formula that was written up because the internet was basically just coming up around there. It was like 98, 99. It was just starting to get out mainstream. And so this guy would literally go out and he would smash computers. Like he would buy out computers, and he's like, I need to smash as many as possible. I need to smash, I have to stop the robots from. I need to stop the computers from taking over. And he wasn't. I mean, maybe he was kind of nutty, but he was still like sane enough to form an argument around it, even though it was a flawed argument. It wasn't like, oh, they're talking to me. The evil robots are talking to me. They must be stopped. It wasn't like that. They actually formed an argument around it. And so, and then there was other, legislation out there. They were trying to legislate the internet. They're trying to get people to do this, do that. They regulate how things are done on the internet. And to a very, very small extent, they were successful, but to the large extent that they weren't. And I think with privacy tooling, it's going to be the same thing.
People need to remember that in my lifetime and in Dan's lifetime, at one point, cryptography was treated as like a munition, and the transmission of it was, heavily illegal. And what happened? Look at where we are today. Censoring code, censoring technology is a fool's game, my opinion. Ultimately, it's too much of a weed.